Brianna and Morgan, welcome to the Taste Toast Travel Podcast. This is so fun. This is the first time I've co-hosted kind of with two people, and you guys are podcasters as well. So we were just laughing as we were coming on here. It's just funny being on the opposite sides of it. But welcome to you guys. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. We're so
Oh
excited to
my
be
goodness. Well, thank
here.
you so much.
Thank you. Well, you guys have built such like a fun community. You were like one of the first. I mean, we're still we're a baby account, at least on like in social media land and just with our podcast and stuff. But I found you guys a while back, and I know we got connected. Kind of just started talking, and I was like, yeah, these girls look fun. They've been around traveling and have probably some amazing stories. So I'd love to start there. So how about we start with? I'll just go alphabetically here. I'd love for both of you to just tell a little bit kind of high level about each of your stories and then we'll get into all the things. So Brianna, can we maybe start with you and just give us a little rundown of just where you're from, where you are now, how you landed there, travels in between.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I guess the sort of like general overview is like if you had asked me when I was 18, do you think I would be doing now? I would definitely have told you I wanted to be an actor because that's what I wanted to do for a very long time.
Amazing.
But when I was about 21, maybe, I did an international internship in rural Kenya for the first time. That was sort of my first time going abroad alone, which was
Oh my
amazing.
God.
And I loved it. And my whole life completely flipped after that experience. I sort of knew that I wanted to live abroad and travel and see the world. So when I graduated university, I moved back to Kenya. I worked with an NGO and social enterprise for a couple of years, which was great. And then after that gig ended, during that time, actually, sorry, I was based in East Africa, but I got to sort of bounce back and forth between Kenya and Ghana, which was really cool, and a little bit of Tanzania,
Oh
so
my
that was
God.
awesome. Then when that ended, I went back to Canada for a while, had a bit of a life crisis, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I became a nanny in the Caribbean when I was working in Curacao for a
As
while,
one
which
does.
was really fun, really fun and beautiful. That was a great job.
Oh.
And then very serendipitously, my sister is an international teacher, and she was working at a school in Albania, and they were hiring for a drama teacher at the very last minute. So she said, "Do you want to come and move to Albania?" So I said yes, and I moved to Albania, and that's sort of when I fell in love with teaching, which was really fun. That's actually where Morgan and I met. We both ended up in Albania in a similar way. And so now I've been working in international education for the last 7 years, and currently I'm based in beautiful Bali, Indonesia, teaching drama here. So
Oh my God.
that's the whirlwind version of where I've been and how I got here.
Several years probably to get into that, I'm sure. Oh my God, that sounds absolutely incredible. Definitely some follow-up questions there. Morgan, let's get your little story here really quick too, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Long story short. So when I was in university, it was the summer before my senior year, and I did this month-long trip to Argentina. It was like a service-based trip, and I lived with this family and did all these different service things in the city. And one of the things I did on that trip was take a bus into the city, and I worked in this little office with, the business people of Cordoba, Argentina. And I was so inspired just being immersed in this culture, like loved popping into the city, like low key living there for the month. And in that moment, I was like, I know that I have to live abroad at some point. So then fast forward after college, I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, or near there. So I was a high school teacher for a couple years in Texas, and then I knew that I had to go move internationally. And I kept trying not to put it off, try not to make a huge life decision because I had some, bunch of different things changing, and I was like, okay, I need to chill for a moment, heal. I can't make big life decisions. And then I was like, okay, I can't wait any longer. I've got to go. So that's what brought me to Europe. And so I was in Spain. I was in Madrid for a couple years, and I taught English there. Loved it. And then loved it, but was feeling, I don't know if that's where I need to be. I was going to move down south in Granada in Spain, and I still wasn't feeling like that was where I needed to be. And this is where Brianna and I got connected. Same story as Brianna, like except not my sister, this girl I met like in high school at a basketball camp. She was like, hey, like not really sure what you're up to. She's like, but my husband and I are teaching in Albania, and the sister school to where Brianna got the drama teacher position, they're like, listen, we need a drama teacher in Durrës, Albania. And I just thought of you. And I was like, oh my gosh. I weirdly, I mean, I didn't study theater like Brianna did, but I've always been a huge fan and like loved theater. And so I felt super connected, moved there, ended up living there for about 3 years. And then I was moving around for about a year and a half between Albania, Spain, London, Cape Town, different places in Europe, which was so fun. But I also, for me, I feel like I needed the balance of stability and adventure, and I was way on the end of adventure. So I came home to Fort Worth to really kind of get that balance back. And ended up meeting the love of my life. And so we're engaged and we live here in Fort Worth. And yeah, so we're just doing a lot of trips and for me, like it's a little bit more my dream to live international again. So like trying to figure out when that's going to be.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like long story short, here I am.
Oh my God, you guys, this is crazy. Okay, we might have to have you come like individually back on to like unpack all of the things. But what I love so much, first of all, we all three have teaching in common, whether it's drama or English in my case or whatever. So I love that. I feel like that's where so many abroad stories. It's either studying abroad or like teaching or something because it's like an easy in. We're all like half broke doing it, but it's like so worth it.
Yeah.
Amazing. But I love how just hearing each of your origin stories and then kind of like how you both came together and like kind of through the same thing of someone being like, "Hey, I thought of you." Like that just kind of blew my mind a little bit. Such kismet. That's so cool. Really quick. Okay, I want to ask a little bit of this of each of you, but Brianna, back to yours for a second. What was it about? Because first of all, Africa is like very high on my list. I hear incredible things about it. What was it? You can kind of answer this one of two ways. Either what was it that drew you to Kenya first and like just particular countries, or just what is it that you walked away with there that was like super inspiring for you and kind of just like that maybe no other country has sort of given you?
Yeah, so super random. I have a minor in African studies. So my major is in theater and my minor is in African studies. And people were like, "What the hell are you going to do with that degree?" And then I went and worked for a theater company in Africa. So jokes on them. Uh,
Yeah. You really applied that.
You don't hear of that happening. I'm just like, that's crazy.
But to be
That's
honest,
so cool.
what drew me, it wasn't actually the sort of travel that drew me there. So I grew up in a kind of small, very white town, and the Ontario curriculum didn't sort of have a massive international perspective at the
Mhm.
time. And so then I moved to Toronto, a bigger city, much more diverse city for university. And I actually very randomly ended up in an introduction to African studies course in my second year. And that course really honestly opened my mind to just how much I didn't know about such a big part of the world.
Yeah.
And so I started taking more classes in the field and I thought it was very interesting. But then I had taken all these African studies classes and I was like, I've never been to this continent. And so I really sort of felt like for my educational journey and to back up this degree that I was pursuing that I should go there. And so I was able to go there through an international internship program through my university, which was amazing. And that sort of whole experience, I think sort of like that was just my sort of first time very immersed in another culture. I'm a firm believer that I think more often than not, anytime anyone goes and travels abroad, wherever they go for the first time, they fall in love with it.
And confirmed.
And, and
I can
so
confirm that as well.
right? And so I think that's why I loved it and that's why I ended up moving back there. And honestly, like I took so much away from that experience, but I think the sort of like one of the main things I took away is that like the stereotypes that we often get in North America are just such a small fraction of the actual story, and I just had such a great time like looking beyond that, experiencing beyond that, and just learning a lot about a whole other culture and myself in the process. So it was a really, really valuable experience. I loved it.
Oh my God, amazing. That's so expansive. What a cool minor too. Oh my God. You just like don't hear of
Right?
that every day. And but then to act
Yeah.
on it in the way that you did and to like be so fearless in doing that and like going abroad basically for the first time and like that's where you go of all places. Like that is super cool. I empathize with that because when I studied abroad in Italy when I was like 19 and like that was my sort of first like truly out of the country experience. And Like you just said, you kind of fall in love with the country, like when you do, and it's so true. And like
Hmm.
Italy is a lot more basic than Kenya, but it was, but it changes your life and it changes your perspective. And I want to dig into all of that, but that is such a cool story. And then Morgan, with you, I'm curious to hear what kind of like led you to Spain and well, because I, as a partially Spanish person as well, by like very deep ancestry,
Oh,
we don't know where they're
yes.
from, and we're trying to figure it out, but I love Spain. I've also been to Spain, but in a much shorter time frame, just, like, week long. But what was it that really
Yeah.
drew you there and, like, that culture, and what really speaks to you about Spain in particular?
Ah, okay. Love the question. So yeah, so I think what initially sparked it. So I went to Argentina. I like love the lifestyle there, and I love the Spanish language. And I was like dead set on. I know at some point in my life, like I need to go live in a Spanish speaking country. And then years later, I did a trip that ended up being a solo trip to Europe over my spring break when I was a teacher. And I went to Paris, kind of last second change of plans, and I had a lot of time by myself. And I remember just like waltzing through the streets of Paris, like chunky boots
Mm.
on, like scarf on, like feeling alive. And I was there and I was like, I need to be in Europe. And this is when I had been like postponing this like internal intuitional feeling of like, I need to go somewhere. But I was there and I was like, I have to pursue it. And so I was in Paris and I was like, you know what? I want to live in Europe and I want it to be a Spanish speaking country. I've never been to Spain. I was like, but it looks like my option is Spain. And I just had this feeling that Madrid um, was the place. So that's where I pursued to find a teaching job and lived there and taught for 2 years. And I love the Spanish language. I'm a little rusty now, but like, I really love it. I think it's beautiful,
Mhm.
and I just love the lifestyle.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not. Sometimes I wish I was an early riser, but I love that it's kind of a later culture. I love that it's super social, even though I'm a little bit more on the side of introversion. But by the time I have my time, get over myself, convince myself to go out, it's like the perfect time to socialize in Spain.
Yeah.
So just the timing, the lifestyle, um, and I love just like on a casual Tuesday, you meet up with friends and drink wine and till like 12 a.m. on a school night, and I'm like, and that's early.
Yeah.
So I
Oh,
just I really love the lifestyle, the
yeah.
slowness, always time for people, always time for some vino, and yeah,
Yeah.
I miss it. I loved it so
Ah,
much.
yes, all the things. Did you feel that kind of in Argentina too? Because Argentina is a whole nother thing to unpack. We have a friend from Argentina, and he's wild in the best possible way. But that's another one on our list because it's so vibrant. And again, the culture, the community, like there's just something to that I'll just like I'm not gonna speak for all parts of America, but like I think it's just lacking. And we are so much bigger and we're all always like, in our cars and stuff like that. Do you feel like that kind of like sense of like community culture and everything is still very much alive and like kind of how it was in Argentina as well, maybe just like a little bit different or kind of similar?
Oh, oh yeah. I think similarly, what I love about Spain, I felt the same thing in Argentina, and for me, so like I said, it was like a service trip, but it was like faith based,
Okay.
and so I remember at that time, I was involved in some like faith based organizations in Texas. And I was like 21 years old, and they made everyone sign a contract that they wouldn't drink alcohol in public, which I thought was absurd. And and then I went to Argentina on this faith based mission trip kind of thing. And I remember we would go out and do our little service stuff. And then they're like, we have a bunch of wine at our house and beer and pizza. Like, shall we? And I remember being like, and it was just so social, so integrated in the culture and
Yeah.
just normalized.
Yeah.
And I think it's so beautiful to be in community, like have
Yeah.
some wine
Yeah.
with people. And so I love that about Argentina as well.
Yes. Oh, I love that about both. And then Spain, now I'm thinking of the tapas and everything else, and now I'm getting
Uh,
hungry. It's
I
it's
know.
magical. It's so magical. Let's
It
dig
is.
into like the moves itself. And you can kind of think of this like with whatever particular location you have moved to. Brianna, let's maybe start with you. Just talk to me a little bit about maybe actually we could maybe focus on Kenya or Africa a little because that is probably such a stark contrast, but just like the idea of like moving abroad, this kind of like starting over, so to speak, and just like how you found your footing there?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. And I think it's been different with every move, also because I've been in like a different life phase, I
Yeah, great.
think, with every move that I have gone through. I think in terms of finding your footing, I think just accepting that it's always going to be a bit bumpy. I think with any move that I've ever gone through, I've been like, oh, it's going to be so easy. I've done this before. Like, and then you get there and there's obvious challenges.
Yeah.
But I think that, I mean, moving from North America to Kenya was just very different because so many, you just sort of have to, I guess if I had advice for moving, it would
Yes,
be
please.
like make friends with local people and get their sort of insight into things. Like if you can learn how the public transportation works really quick and easy, like as soon as you get there, that's great. Like having a local friend to help you like find grocery stores, get your cell phone set up. Like
Right.
I think the logistics of moving anywhere, like anytime I've moved, it's all of those like small things that can sort of like feel overwhelming because they're very different. Setting up bank accounts, finding a house. So, I mean, the sort of best thing that's ever happened to me in any place that I've moved is I've been able to hopefully connect with someone who's already living there who can like help you out with that
Definitely.
a little bit. And then once sort of like the logistics are taken care of, then for me, I'm a big sort of like sit back and observe and then jump in kind of person. So whenever I move to a new place, like I'm very much like go out for a coffee, see how things are going, go for a walk, and just sort of like
Right.
watch and see how things go. And then I sort of like start to jump in head first and get used to it. I guess that's
Mhm.
sort of been my approach. But again, like I've had you, I think you always have moments where you move to a new place and you're like, this is amazing. I'm so glad I moved here. This is so great. And then you will like also have a moment where you're like lost in the middle of nowhere and your cell phone dies and you're like, why would I do
You're
this to myself? I hate it here. So I think it's just more or less like being open to those extreme feelings, especially at the beginning, and just knowing that like eventually you'll settle.
Yes, definitely. That's great. That's great advice. Morgan, what about you?
When I first moved to a place, I feel like there's all this excitement and newness, and a lot of things falling into place. So you're kind of just getting settled, go go go. But I feel as far as obstacles, I mean, of course, life always has them, but I feel like they for me they kind of started to set in when things got a little bit more set into place, and then you kind of start feeling like like you miss those soul connections you have from the place you were living before, and you're like craving that kind of connection. And though you're working on creating it, it's something that I definitely feel. And then you
Mm.
kind of have these feelings of loneliness as you're missing these like soul connections you used to have in the
Yeah.
city you lived in. So for me, that's usually one of my biggest obstacles because it takes time to build those connections and for those new people to feel like your soul
You're
people,
kind
you
of
know?
your people. Yeah, it takes like I mean time to just get acclimated anywhere, even if it's somewhere you're like excited about, comfortable, maybe have even like been to before, but like I feel like it's so interesting that you can like feel so like you have like your home, right? Like where you're from, Canada, Texas, but like that I almost feel like starts to shift a little bit when you move to a new place because like you leave like a little piece of your soul there and then a little piece of your soul in the next place and the next place. And then like I see so much on this on like social media where it's like you kind of start to lose track of like where you truly feel at home. How have either of you felt that way? And it's okay if
Yeah.
not. Like if you're feeling like very settled where you are now, but like have either of you kind of like dealt with a little bit of that? Like you almost like don't feel super at home like, almost anywhere now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, this is so like strange for me to even say, but like I feel like I've actually of all of the moves that I've gone through, the hardest move I think has been the one from Albania to Indonesia, which is kind of shocking because I've done it so many times. You would think I would be better at it, but somehow I feel like I'm getting worse at it. But I think like for me, I just had such a wonderful group of friends that I was with when I was in Albania. That's where Morgan and I met. We have a really great group of friends there. We were also there through the pandemic, which I feel like kind of almost like trauma bonded
Oh
us
god,
together
yes.
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
sense, in that we spent so much time together because we also couldn't leave the country. And so my I personally, and even I've gone back every summer to visit Albania, I very strangely feel very, very at home in Albania, even
Yeah.
though I am not Albanian. My Albanian language skills are really not very good, but like I feel so at home there. My sister is still there. My
Oh,
best friends are still there. So I feel very, very at home there, which is strange because I am not from that country. And so I think that's what made this switch to Indonesia so difficult, was because I sort of felt like I was leaving a place that wasn't my home but was my home, and then I like was not able to recreate that in this new
mm,
home. And
yeah,
so I think that your perception of home changes and where you feel comfortable really changes. But if anything, I feel like, and I mean, this sounds really cheesy. People are like, oh, your family is like who you choose or whatever. And I'm very blessed. I have a great relationship with my blood family as well as my friend family. But I think that for me, at least, to feel at home, it's really the people. And I think I was very, very fortunate to find people that felt like home in Albania.
definitely. Morgan, what about you?
Oh yeah. I relate to what you were initially saying, like that quote, like of a piece of your heart is in so many places. And
Yeah.
I feel like just a bit of my heart was in Argentina, like the first place that I went kind of by myself. Definitely a big part of my heart in Spain, Albania, and here in Texas. Um, and it's just so hard, like, and sometimes I worry because I wonder, even though I'm very content with where I'm at right now, and there's a lot of things I love about my life here in Texas, I kind of wonder, like, my heart craves to like to go to these other places and also go back to these other places that feel like home. And so I always wonder sometimes, like, will it ever stop? And with
Nope.
mentioning, probably not.
I feel that.
And mentioning, you feel it as well.
Yeah.
Um, mentioning being, engaged, and I think one of when you're with somebody, it's so important. Like you want to experience with them and show them all these different parts of like your heart and who you are. And so like for my fiance, like, I've gotten to go to like his places, and it's been so important for me. We just got to go to Spain this year, to show him, because I feel like that's literally part of my heart.
Yeah.
Like you have to like come be a part of. So yeah, my heart is everywhere.
I love it. It's like everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Like, so I think
Yeah, it's abstract.
yes, definitely. I want to quickly touch on like changing careers and that sort of transition as you guys have each made these moves. And it sounds like you've both worked in drama. So I'm kind of curious to hear just a little bit about that. But then any other career changes or, just transitions and what that has looked like. Because one thing for me that I dealt with a little bit because I worked for Gap, like clothing company Gap for like 8 years. And then I went to teaching, and I almost felt like I was taking like a little bit of a step back there. But then like, there was such a bigger part of me that was like, okay, yeah, I might not be making the best money at all right now, but like, this is fulfilling me and filling my cup in such a way that I have never experienced before. So like, give yourself some grace, Tara, kind of a thing. So, can you guys just just very briefly on like what that has looked like for you? And maybe Brianna, we can start with you on this one.
Sure. So, I mean, to be honest, changing careers for me, I used to judge myself a lot for sort of like all of the changes that I have made, but recently I've like actually just really started accepting it and celebrating it. And I would say something that I'm actually quite proud of is that if I look back over the past 15 years, whatever I am passionate about in the moment, I have gone for it and I've experienced it. And then when I was ready for a new chapter, I switched. So, I mean, I left university so excited about international development, and I went and I did that. I came back, I was lost, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I liked working with children. So I was like, I'm going to follow my passion of working with kids while I figure it out. And that landed me in the Caribbean, which was amazing. And then, I mean, I've always been passionate about drama and always sort of working with young people. That took me to Albania. And then, sort of like the second that I found teaching, I was like, oh, and I don't regret not doing it longer. I'm very grateful for all the experiences that I had, but I truly love it so much.
Yeah.
And I feel very at home in this career. And I say it very similar. Sometimes I'm like, man, I wish that I was passionate about making corporate money, but I'm just not.
I love
and
that.
so and so right now I'm in a season of just really enjoying teaching and trying to get better at that. And so for me, I've just sort of always followed my passions, and it has led me to incredible places. So it's been good, to be honest. I
Yeah.
have zero regrets about changing careers like a million times.
That's great advice too. And just I think very inspirational for anyone here listening in terms of like if it feels like a step back, like my husband, co-host of this podcast, like struggles with that. And like and there's so much, I mean, especially growing up like in the US and other countries too, I'm sure that it's just like, we're kind of like ingrained from an early age, many of us, not all of us, but like, okay, you go to
Hmm.
college, you get a good job, you stick in that. And it's like, that's like breaking out of that and having the courage to break out of that and do things a different way. Like, I think we're the generation that is very much doing that and is releasing some of the fear around doing that. But yeah, there's a lot of concerns, right? Having enough money to do all the things that we want to do and living in these places and all of that. And so, there's stressors that come with it. I totally get why people sometimes hesitate making that leap. But Morgan, what has that been like for you?
Yeah, so I feel like Brianna and I have talked about how we've been career chameleons, and I really
Oh, I
identify with
love
that
that.
label. So I've
Yeah.
also been a career chameleon. And so mine started out, I've always been like super specific and passionate. And so I grew up literally always knowing that I wanted to be a high school teacher, and that was my dream. And so I started off as a high school speech teacher in Texas, loved it, but then I wanted to live internationally. And so then that's what brought me to teach English in Spain, and then what led me to teach drama in Albania. By the end of my 6 years of teaching, and I've always had this other part of me that was a little bit curious about like corporate life and what that could entail. And I've always been passion driven, other than money driven. But then it started to shift a little bit, just because I wanted to be able to do all the things that I that I wanted to do, and which was an interesting transition for me internally. But by the end of my 6 years of teaching, I was like, and teaching in Albania for me was very hard, and I just was like, this is not for me. I was like, I cannot do it anymore. I cannot.
Yeah.
And so it was also an interesting transition going from teaching, etc., which I'll get to. And so I've done so many random things. So I've done events where I've worked at music festivals, and I've done like customer service and different jobs and music festivals in Albania and then in France. And then I also ended up getting a US based, or it's like a US company remote job as a recruiter
Oh my God.
for for like machinist and mechanics, which is like hilarious because that's never been my background, but I knew the lingo at the time. So that was remote, and so I got to do that for a time. And then what else did I do? Random things. I was an extra for a documentary, which was very low paying, but I was just down for
I
random things.
love it.
And then what? Oh, and then I was social media marketing. So I did some for myself and some for this company that did social media for a bunch of small businesses. So I did that. Did some for myself. Worked with the company that started TikTok. I think it's called ByteDance, and they started Lemon 8. It was an app, and so I was making travel guides for them for a while.
Oh my God.
And then, so all these random things, just hustling. And then when I moved back home, I was still doing the social media marketing. I tried substitute teaching for a little bit just for some extra income. And then what I've been doing lately is I said I would never work for my parents and then for their family company, and then here I am over a year. And it's been overall really great. Obviously, there's pros and cons to that, but it's allowed a lot of flexibility. So I'm allowed to just be like, hey guys, in February I'm going to be in Africa for 3 weeks. So just put that out of office for Morgan.
Oh,
So it's allowed me a lot of flexibility, which is really nice.
that's amazing. Listen, sometimes we need to just bite the bullet and do those things if it allows for other opportunities that really like speak to our heart and soul come up. And what I love about both of you and
Hmm.
what's clear, even though your stories are, a little different and some of the work you've done is different, is you've to me, it's like you've really gone just where you've been led and where you've been excited about, or at least curious about, or where it at least like aligned at the time. And even if it wasn't something you were like, gonna do for the rest of your life, like it was where you were at in the time. And you at least have a good story behind it, or at least there's like lesson learned from it, if nothing else, right? Something to put on the resume,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. I want to just touch on too some of I think we touched on this like a little bit already, but if there's anything either of you have to say on this, just like the challenges of expat life compared to like the reality, because I think with social media, especially, right, like it is in many ways a highlight reel. There's a lot to that. But the realities of what we go through when you actually do move and are getting settled and stuff, as we have already talked about, is like just very different. So again, sorry, I'm kind of going back and forth between both of you here. So Brianna, we'll go back
Yeah.
to you and start with you on this one. Do you have any just like anything we haven't talked about already in terms of like kind of that? I don't want to just continue to bringing it back to Instagram, but just like the expectations versus reality of what it means to be an expat.
Totally. And I would say, honestly, Instagram is a highlight reel. And I think what you don't see on Instagram is how lonely the experience can be at times.
Yeah.
And obviously, the loneliness is not so overwhelming that it has driven me, at least, to go home. But I could understand, like, why it would. And to give, like, a very specific example of, like, a moment when I realized that, like, my life, and I don't want to say my life is an internet trick, but like if you looked at my life on Instagram, it looks like an internet trick. Like my life on Instagram looks like I do not have a job. My life on Instagram looks like all I do is go surfing and drink
Oh my
coconuts and
God.
go on trips, and like that is what my life looks like. But I remember it was when I first moved to Bali, and I took like an hour and a half long scooter ride to this beach that was supposed to be super beautiful. I didn't realize that you have to check the tides. So I was like sitting on this beach, and literally a wave washed out the entire beach. Like I got absolutely soaked. Thank God I like put my hand up with my phone and my like wallet and stuff so my stuff didn't get drenched, but I was
Oh my
completely
God.
soaked. I had no change of clothes, like nothing. All my stuff is soaking wet. I'm covered in sand. And then I walk up to take a shower and a monkey steals my sunglasses, and I was all by myself. And I was like so sad. And then I like went to this like little other beach coffee shop, and I was sitting there and I was like having a beer, and I also bought some new sunglasses on on the journey. And I couldn't believe that I did it. But like what I did was I like took a photo of my new sunglasses with the beer, with this beautiful beach behind me and all of these surfers, and it looked like I was having the greatest Sunday of my life. But in reality, I was wearing wet jean shorts, and I was like crying because I was like, I hate this beach. Why did I move here? I'm all by myself. Like,
I hate to
and so
laugh because it's
I,
not like funny, but it's just like I'm
but
like,
it is though. Like, it's and if you looked at the gram, you'd be like, wow, she's living the dream. And I'm like, I am covered in sand and I have to go home. Um, and so I think that like expat life, it can just be quite lonely
yeah.
at times. And there are going to be moments of like really, really intense loneliness. And that's part of it. The flip side is that, you know, sometimes I do go to the beach and I do have a beer and I don't have sand in my underwear. Uh,
I'm dying.
but sorry, that was like kind of a long-winded
No, I
roundabout way to
love
get there.
that. It's
But I
It was
would say
it was great.
that yes, there is definitely a lot of loneliness, but that's kind of part of it.
it's a little par for the course. Yeah. Morgan, what about you?
Yeah. I feel that as well. Love the story. You're a great storyteller. So I feel that with living abroad, I feel like it just operates in extremities. There's a lot of highs and a lot of lows. Yeah, one of the lows is often feeling that kind of loneliness. And I feel like for me, I'm quite an emotional person, and so I'm an internal processor, and then I'm an external feeler to speak about it with someone that I really trust. So in those lows, well, obviously in the highs as well, but in the lows, so many times I was like, I want to call my mom. I was like, I just need to call my mom. I'm like in this country and everything. Like this lady just cut in front of me at the post office, and I elbowed her, and I'm like, no. And I'm all stressed about it. I'm like, I have to call my mom. And so, which is great to have someone that you can call, but then oftentimes when you're calling on these kind of lows and heaviness and struggles, you know, they just kind of want to protect you and like, come on, move home. Like, you just need to move home.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's those things where it's like I wanted to share in those as well, but like sometimes people think it's only that side of it and they're just ready for you to book it on back home. And I'm like, wait, there's actually also really great parts of this that ultimately keeps me being here that I love.
Right.
Um,
And we got to like work through
but
it.
yeah,
It like builds that resilience
yeah,
a little bit too. And so like I totally feel like of course, you know, our parents like want to protect us and whatever. But there's something to be said about sticking it out a little bit, you know. And that actually leads me perfectly to my next question as we slowly wrap up here. This is a big question. So again, answer this however you want, but kind of just I think it's a beautiful sort of culmination of everything we've been talking about and just like how these experiences living abroad has changed your perspective. And so maybe it's just like one overarching thing or whatever. But Brianna, again, I'll come back to you to start off on that one, just how it's changed you.
I think it's really sort of just showed me what is possible. And I mean that in so many different regards. I think like one of the beautiful things about traveling and living in so many places is you see how families operate differently. You see how businesses operate differently. You see how schools operate differently, how public transportation is different, how, lifestyle, pace of life. And this is not to say that things aren't great in Canada, where I'm from, because Canada is a great country and a lot of people really enjoy living there. But for me, I think I have sort of realized that the life I am able to create for myself, I can create a life that is very different than what people in Canada are experiencing. And it's a way that feels really, really good for me. And I have so many opportunities living abroad that I wouldn't necessarily have if I was living in Canada. And so for me, sort of just living abroad has just really shown me what's possible. It's allowed me to access what's possible, and I'm like very grateful for that. But I think it's just really opened my mind to the fact that not everything has to be the way that you saw growing up. And I've just been really fortunate to be able to sort of pick and choose from all of the different cultures that I've visited and experienced, like what parts of these cultures, what parts of these countries, like how do I want to incorporate that into my life and my lifestyle. And it's allowed me to create a life that I'm like really stoked about. So I think that's sort of how things have shifted.
That's amazing. I love that. Morgan, what about you?
I love that too. And very, very similarly, I feel that, and what we've kind of mentioned earlier is just seeing that there's a different way to live. And being from Texas, I feel that you're kind of told there's this trajectory, like like we've mentioned, you go to college, you get the job, you get married, have kids, buy the house, live there forever. And though there's, definitely those parts that I want incorporated in my life, but I feel that having lived abroad, it just really ingrained the idea of there are so many different ways to live, and to really celebrate those ways. And it doesn't just have to be the traditional way. And you can, like what you mentioned, Brianna, like create this life you want wherever you are, and take these things that you've learned from these different cultures and these different ways of living, and create this beautiful, extraordinary life.
It's so
Amen. I hear you.
It's so expansive and it just broadens our horizons and opens our eyes and humbles us in the best ways. And no, it's so true. And like I feel like once you really experience that and really lean into it, you like there's no going back after that either. And it's just yeah, it's life-changing. And you also realize the people whose bubbles are about this big and have not gotten out enough. And it's like, I have some family members like that. And it's just like, it's not that you can't talk to them, but it's just, it almost makes it harder to relate. So I think it's like finding your community and finding your people and your friends who get it. It makes it that much more important. So my last thing here, because you guys, of course, as I mentioned in the beginning as well, you have a podcast as well, The Global Girlfriend, which I love the name so much. Can you just talk to me about The Global Girlfriend, just really quick, like how it came to be, what you guys cover on your podcast, because I know you guys welcome guests as well, and how it came to fruition.
Yeah, so it's been a really fun journey. It's sort of, Morgan and I are both very creative people. So Morgan takes incredible photos. We're both obviously teaching drama. I'm into speaking and performing. And so we've always we've really sort of connected, I think, over like our creativity. And that's like everything from like art and fashion and also sports.
Yes.
Sports. We like hiking and skiing. And so anyway, we Morgan and I, like from the moment our very serendipitous friendship started, we had a lot in common. And one of the things that we have in common is also just like our love of like soul friendships, soul connections, and soul conversations. And so Morgan and I, like so many international friends had a WhatsApp voice note relationship for many years
Yes.
when we were in different places. And so literally like I was just listening to our voice notes one day and I was like, dang, like we have some wisdom between the two of us. Like we should start a podcast.
Just kind of chit-chatting. And then I think once you were in Bali, and then I had moved back to Texas, and so I was in this place of, really, well, kind of like healing in a lot of ways, but like also really reflecting on all these beautiful things and lessons and journeys and such. And so it just ended up being the perfect time for us to finally put these ideas into action. And it's been one of the biggest gifts for me. Like we talk about things that, well, obviously we're so passionate about, anything from travels to kind of like conversations we're having today of, the struggles, the beautiful things, places we've been, places we want to go. And so it's been, seriously, it has filled my soul. It's like so joyful to be able to do this podcast because we get to talk about things we care about so much.
Yes. Oh, I relate to that so much. John and I have a very kind of same but different type story. And it's just, I think that's the beautiful part about this. And then podcasting too, is like you get to have these conversations with people who truly get it and who just like see you in all of your exploration and wanting to have these adventures and whatever. And it really does mean so much to feel like really seen in that. Cause there's a lot of people again that maybe just don't have those aspirations. And that's okay if they just are more of a homebody and don't want to travel, that's fine. But that is clearly not any of our journeys. And we're like, get me the hell out of here. So it's just like, it's such a beautiful journey. I agree. And I'm so with both of you, but I know Morgan, you've said this a couple times today, like I just wanting to live like a really big and fulfilling and beautiful and amazing life. And yeah, these conversations foster that and it inspires us more. And also anytime I record with people and ask them like, okay, where would you recommend going? Like, where's someplace like I maybe don't know about that I should go? Like hearing everyone's answers are very interesting. So clearly, I mean, would you recommend going to Albania? Because I've been seeing some things about it.
Absolutely.
And it looks fabulous.
Yes.
So
it is an absolutely stunning
add
country.
that to the list. Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to
Anywhere
think.
else?
Do you have one on the top of your mind, Brianna?
I just wanted to say about Albania, 10 out of 10. You should absolutely go to Albania. I know, especially you're into wine. Albania's got great wine.
I've heard that.
Like beautiful wineries, like really, really lovely. Albania has beaches and has mountains. The one thing I will say is that talking about Instagram versus reality, I do notice that a lot of content about Albania paints it as like the Maldives of Europe.
Yeah.
And something that I think is really important to remember about Albania is that it's a country with a very interesting past. They were communist until 1991, and so it's still quite quirky and not crazy developed. Like it's a goats on the highway kind of country. And so I think if you go into it with that mentality of like I'm here to see beautiful things, but also I mean Albania is not in the European Union yet, and there's some reasons for that. So as long as you're going into it with that sort of expectation, I think you will have an incredible time. Yeah, it's a brilliant country. I 10 out of 10 recommend going.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like any of the countries you guys have been to, lived in, talked about today are up there. Morgan, for sure. Like Argentina is a big one for me. Was there any last ones on your list?
There's so many, but I think
of course,
having lived in Albania and then also us being there during the pandemic, and a lot of the Eastern European countries were more or less pretty open as far as travel goes. I got to do a lot of road trips to Eastern Europe countries, and so I think one of my favorite places that actually Brianna and I went together is Bosnia and Herzegovina. And so we went skiing and saw the city of Sarajevo, and that was one of my favorite places I've skied. And then it also has a lot of very recent, intense history. So it was, it's heavy, but it's good to hear the stories of the people who have lived it in this place, and also a lot of markets and good food. And so I definitely think that's definitely a place. Put Eastern Europe in general on your list.
Yeah, mine too.
I agree. My list is so long. It's so long. Oh my God. Amazing. Thank you guys so much for coming on today. This was such a fun conversation. We could talk for like another hour or two about all of this, I'm sure. There's so much more we didn't even get to today, but I just really appreciate you guys sharing your stories. I'm so excited for everyone to hear this and get to know you two better too, and all of your travels, and to go listen to your podcast, The Global Girlfriend, as well. Yeah, just thank you guys so much for
honestly,
sharing your
so
experiences
fun.
with me. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a
Thank
blast.
you so much for having us. This has been so fun.